Welcome to today's Zaleski Sports Show. I'm Jason Zaleski. Dan Ross is, of course, right there. And on today's show, we've got girls and boys basketball rankings to talk about. We've got some good games from tonight, and we're going to hear about Dan's exploits in marathon last night.
It's true. It's all yours, and it's all now.
All right, Dan. So let's get right into it. You had an interesting game. You had the number one ranked team in the land, girls basketball Division 5, the Assumption Royals last night. They visited the Marathon Red Raiders, and fill us in on what happened.
Yeah, it was a game against two teams with really good records. Marathon comes in 12-2, Assumption 13-1, I believe. And Marathon has done a good job beating teams that they should beat this year. Not a great win on the resume if we're talking about college basketball, right? And it's about what you expected. Marathon struggled with the Assumption press in the full court, able to play well at times, but playing well at times just made the lead go from 25 to 20, for example, then stretch out to 30, right? Assumption's impressive. I think there are some chinks in the armor. I think that depth is an issue. I think that teams that get them in the half court have a pretty good chance to beat them, especially if they have a big, because there's no bigs on the Assumption side. The good news is that in Division 5, Assumption's not going to see a lot of that on their trip to try to get to Green Bay. So I was impressed with Assumption. Jordan Jaglinski shot 4 of 6 from beyond the arc. She's a game changer, especially at that level, right? Um, Marathon has a good program, but it really is just kind of a step behind the Assumptions, Stratfords, Auburndales in the conference.
Yeah, you mentioned Assumption, get them in the half court. That's the idea, but I don't know that anybody's found out how to execute on that idea yet. Pacelli will lay claim to that. The Assumption folks, the Lions, as I call them, they'll wrap back right away with, well, this one was sick and we were missing this one, and wait till the playoffs, and you get all that kind of talk. Speaking of the Pacelli Cardinals, they went into a very hostile Eagles nest last night. Two ranked teams. Pacelli out of Division 5, two top 10 ranked teams. Pacelli out of Division 5, Auburndale out of Division 4, and Auburndale with the win last night. The Eagles felt really good about that. Still a younger team, juniors, sophomores, freshmen. I'm sure there's a couple of seniors on the team, but what the whole town is crowing about is the young girls on this team, and they have first-year basketball coach Josh Nagel. Auburndale got the best of Pacelli. They beat Stratford just last week, so you might think the Eagles on the girls' side kind of have things going right now.
Yeah, I have heard a lot of really good things. I have seen them play once this year, I believe. And yeah, really young, a lot of freshmen, a lot of sophomores taking up a lot of the play time. So if you're an Eagles fan, you have a couple of years here that are going to be what will be referred to later as the good old days, right? I noticed it with Assumption girls last night. They start four seniors, right? It's four seniors and Jaglinski. And after that, there's a pretty far drop off, and a lot of younger kids are going to have to fill in roles next year. It's probably the end of the Assumption reign.
Hmm.
See how I say that? Reign with the Royals. At least for a little bit, right? Teams like Assumption seem to reload instead of rebuild, but next year, depending on what Coach Christopherson has coming back at Stratford next year, Eagles in for a really good 2-3 year stretch here, I think.
So the two games on, I guess what we'll call the main network at this point. You can watch either of those games in their entirety on Roku. Just download the Zaleski Sports app. Of course, you can try to muddle through YouTube and find it way easier on the Roku app. I say the major network, Dan. I had two games here at the beach last night, not at this beach, but at the beach. And I had a couple of classics. People may want to, if you're interested in watching some interesting basketball, I had an overtime thriller last night down here on the boys' side. Those games are on YouTube, but most of our audience here likely not interested in those games, and I do understand that. I will talk about tonight's games coming up here in just a little bit, but let's get into, it's a bit of an abbreviated show here, as people can see. I'm at the Gulf of America. Dan's holding down the fort in Wisconsin. We got all corners of the globe covered here on Zaleski Sports.
Seems that way.
Seems that way, yeah. Rankings. VIP members can see these rankings right now. This is based on the seed math that the WIAA uses to seed the teams come postseason, which is just around the corner. As a matter of fact, in a week, we will have our first brackets unleashed. So for the girls anyway, this is the last mathematical ranking that we will give the folks. We turn to brackets going forward on the girls' side in particular. But as we take a look in Division 1, Kimberly, Arrowhead, Pewaukee, Waunakee, Hartford. And we're in that point now, Dan, where we're not seeing a lot of movement, some minor movement, but the book of work, the math is large now, about as large as it will be. And so you're going to see little movements every now and then. Eau Claire Memorial comes in at 9, so a top 10 team in the old Abes. The Spash Panthers 18 as I take a look around. In Division 2, and if you want me to stop here, you just shout out and tell me you want to talk about some of these things. In Division 2, Edgewood, Tosa East, Beaver Dam, Whitnall, Union Grove, Rice Lake 6, and your Lakeland T-Birds come in at 7. They're looking to make some noise in the playoffs this year, I think.
Yeah, Rice Lake is in that sectional. And is it Christina Womet?
Yeah.
Kristen, right?
Yeah, sounds right.
Yeah, she's a finalist for Miss Basketball this year. That was announced yesterday.
As those were just announced, weren't they? Mosinee 21. They did lose to Neillsville on Friday. Neillsville, the number 1 girls basketball team in Division 4. I'll announce that. Well, I just announced it, but that's been kind of the case for most of the year. So Division 4, Neillsville beat Division 2 Mosinee just a couple of days ago. So congratulations, Warriors and John Geyer. Got things pointed the right way as we end the regular season here soon. In Division 3, Kettle Moraine Lutheran, Laconia, Wittenberg, Bournemouth. The Chargers having a really nice year. Elk Mound and Oostburg, still my favorite Goslings in Wisconsin. I mentioned Division 4 as we take a look here. I get my phone back in order. I'm just reading these right on my phone, right on Zaleski Sports VIP. That's what you should be doing. Those of you watching the show right now. Neillsville, St. Mary Catholic, the Prairie School, Manny Lutheran, and Bangor, your top 5 in Division 4. And Cuba City is 8. It was Cuba City beating Neillsville last year in a sectional final. And Neillsville's running it right now, Dan, and they're kind of running away with the number one. They've got a hefty seed score of 731. St. Mary Catholic 711. Unless some disaster strikes Neillsville, they will be the number one here in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, it really feels that way. And I'm not that familiar with that sectional, but it looks like Cuba City is probably in that sectional and probably their top competition.
Yeah.
Cuba City is 8/800ths of a point behind, or 8 something. Yeah, a long ways.
Long ways away, yeah.
Long ways.
So they get to that bracket. You're looking at the 1-2 in that bracket, unless we're missing somebody in between. I don't think we are. In Division 5, we talked about the Assumption Lions already. Albany, Monticello, Lord's Academy, New Auburn, and Pacelli. 5. This was through games played through Sunday at midnight. I know Pacelli did just lose yesterday, but probably won't affect it too much. As I look back up in Division 4, Auburndale, high on the list, is 7th in the state now for the Auburndale Eagles. So I want to again look at, we've been kind of looking at Assumption and Albany, Monticello throughout the season. They've even traded places a couple of times. Sheboygan Lutheran was up there. They've faded a little bit in the last 3 weeks, have the Sheboygan Lutherans. The Albany Monticello Space Ponies, the Assumption Lions, Assumption seed score 704 and Albany Monticello 700.
Very close.
Extremely close. And any slip by either team, they would relinquish that number one.
Yeah, I mentioned it on the broadcast last night that the way that Division 5 is set up is that we have a lot of really good teams that are going to play really good games this year in the tournament, but it's probably just not going to be at the regional level, right? These are going to be sectional games. These are going to be state games. It feels like there's a big gap between the top, let's say the top 3 or 4 teams in each sectional and everybody else. And I guess it is kind of usually that way, but it seems more pronounced in Division 5 this year.
In Division 5, also checking in, Almond Bancroft is 9. I'll tell you more about the Eagles coming up as we talk about our schedule for the week. And Owen Withy comes in at 14. Pittsville, 23. Pittsville was in a sectional final last year,
Okay.
but 23 right now. They would have to likely catch fire after a regional final to make it to a sectional final. It can happen. Jason Knott knows how to do it, but that's, I think, what would have to happen there if you're cheering along the Pittsville Panthers this year.
Yeah, and waiting in the wings in that sectional with probably Pittsville and Assumption and Pacelli. The other half of that bracket has Lena, who lost in the state championship last year. They kind of literally fumbled it away at the end of regulation and then lost in overtime. So you have a hungry team in the sectional final waiting for whoever comes out.
Yeah, and you mentioned height, right? Talking about Assumption. Well, Lena has the height.
They
They
do.
have that type of situation that can get the other team into a half court. So we'll see what happens. We've got some time to figure this out. And of course, the kids will settle it right on the court. Again, I'm reading from ZaleskiSports.com. You click VIP, it's $5 a month. You get to see all this information and more. Every single team in the state is given a numerical mathematical equation in here. And again, it's the same math that the association uses to see the teams coming up. And we're going to put those teams into brackets over the next couple of weeks. And you'll get to see those brackets before anybody else does.
I love brackets. I love them.
Yeah, well, we're running a popcorn bracket right now too. We'll see if we have time to touch on that. I hope we do. People on social media got to see that over the weekend, but if time allows. On the boys' side, in Division 1, Wisconsin Lutheran, I haven't seen a better team play this year, Dan Ross, than Wisconsin Lutheran. They are
Probably not.
outstanding. Yeah,
The scientists are they also very fun to watch, but
they
not
are.
like Lutheran.
They are, and I think we mentioned a week or two ago. Unfortunately, we won't get to see them play. That'd be a nice game. I think I would be sitting in the blue and red of Wisconsin Lutheran. I'd be sitting right with the moms and dads over there cheering those guys on though. Anyway, so Wisconsin Lutheran, De Pere, Kettle Moraine, Wanakee, West Allis Central. That's Division 1. Eau Claire Memorial checks in at 11. Appleton North at 13. Marshfield at 14. Nina on 17. We mentioned other teams that regularly appear on this network, and Wausau West just makes the cut in the top 25.
Yeah, and there's a lot of really good teams in these local sectionals up here in Division One, right? You can go northwest or northeast. Obviously, the Fox Valley sectional is always classic, right? But even going northwest, which is really the western part of the state in Division One, right? Not a lot of D1 schools in the top half. Um, oh, what do you think about Eau Claire Memorial making a run? A lot of the teams above them in the rankings, they're not going to see those teams.
Right. I think they've got a really good chance to make a run because they don't have the offensive philosophy that the Wisconsin Valley Conference schools do. And that's really it right there. If you're a Wisconsin Valley Conference school, you've got to get it out of your head that 50 points is enough to win a basketball game. In the postseason, you will be ousted immediately if you are going to rely on a 50-point effort offensively. That is not going to hold it. And the old Abes of Eau Claire Memorial, they do not believe in that philosophy at all. Chad Brisky is going to have his team ready. They score points. They're fun to watch. Yeah, they get a really good chance. They're still feeling the sting, maybe a little bit from 2 years ago as a 1 seed losing to a 16. Some of those guys are still on that team, but a chance to correct it all here in a few weeks for the old Abes.
Yeah, and just the way that the rankings are setting up, Eau Claire Memorial might get a 1 seed.
They're in a favorable spot, aren't they?
They are.
Yeah. In Division 2, Racine Park, Slinger, Mount Horeb, Wausau East comes in at 4. Waterford is 5. And so Wausau East having a really nice year. I don't know, Dan, are they having a better year than last year?
I think there's a lot more positivity and momentum on this year's team. It really is last year's team, 1 year older, which is always a good thing in high school sports, right? Um, my question for Coach Garrett and the Wausau East faithful is can you win the big one? Can you make the jump, right? It's great playing regionals, and I believe Wausau East won a regional title last year.
They did.
Went to regionals, it didn't go well, right? You're going to have to play a lacrosse central, right? You're going to have to play one of these teams that has always kind of been on top. To be the king, you have to beat the king, right? And that's my question. I think they have the talent to do it. They have great players, good coaching. But if Wausau East wants to be a historic team, Wausau East doesn't go to state very often in basketball, right? It's been at least 20, 25 years that I can remember, right? If this is the team that does it, have your work cut out for you, but man, it is in your hands, is what I would say.
Coach Dan Garrett, Dan Ross has sounded the alarm to you.
A lot of
But
respect for Coach Garrett.
friend of the show for sure, Coach Garrett. Of course, our all access school, so we've got to know the Lumberjacks really well this year, and thanks to a large part to Coach Dan Garrett for letting his kids be seen in sometimes vulnerable spots to the rest of the world, and it has turned out for the best for that team, having our cameras in there. We think. Mosinee checks in at 14, River Falls 16, and the Rhinelander Hodags really having one for the ages. They check in at 21 this week.
Yeah, and two kind of bad losses for the Hodags lately. They lost to Anago last week, and that's a little shocking,
Can't let that
right?
happen.
Yeah. And I don't know if there's injuries or there's a lot of sickness. There's a lot of like ick going around a lot of teams right now. So that might be part of it. And I don't want to give excuses. I'm not in the business for excuses, but when I saw the score, Anago won by 18 or something, it sounds the alarms, like it doesn't pass the smell test, right? So something's happening up there. I don't know what it is though.
I can tell you, there's no ick here at the ocean, man. It is
It
wonderful
looks
breathing,
beautiful.
right? It gets you healthy. Uh,
I'm surprised you're wearing a sweatshirt. You should
well,
you should have come into this with a Speedo and nothing else on, and a
let's
hat. A
we'll
hat and
do an
Speedo.
after hours show later tonight. How's that sound?
No, I don't want to be a part of it. I don't want to be a part of it.
I am wearing shorts, but no, it's about 60, and you know this, and other people that have been to the ocean before. The ocean's got its own breeze, and it's a little chillier at the sea. The good news though, the seas are not angry, and I'm not hitting Titleists out into the ocean though either. Um, in Division Three, the scientists of Milwaukee Academy have been the one from wire to wire. They're followed by Freedom, Lake Mills, Racine Lutheran, and Wittenberg Burnhamwood. So now we've got both the girls and the boys from Wittenberg Burnhamwood having really nice seasons. But I've got bad news if you're not Milwaukee Academy of Science. Enjoy the ride. The scientists, I'm not sure how you stop them.
Wittenberg probably clumped in with Laconia and Freedom, I would imagine, just geographically speaking. So
Yep.
Wittenberg probably going to have a really high seed, probably host two or three playoff games through regionals, and then who knows at sectionals.
Yep. Yep. Who knows? Got to play well down the stretch, that's for sure. As we move to Division Four, Bonduel, the Bears having a season for the record books right now. Dan, they've got a seed score of 741. It's just
That's the highest that I've seen the last couple of years doing this. 741 is incredibly high.
yeah. Somebody, and it may have been on the girls' side last year. Somebody carried like a 730 or something like that. So yeah, 741 is beefy.
Yeah,
Beef.
and they won at Iola on a half court shot at the buzzer
That's right. Just
last
last
week.
week. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ron Colley, Aquinas, Auburndale is 4, and Mineral Point is 5. Back to Bonduel. The seed score 741. We mentioned on the girls' side, Assumption 704 and Albany Monticello 700. So you go all the way 3 to the right of the decimal point. Bonduel 741, Ron Colley 683. Bonduel is just destroying Division 4.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is impressive. And we have been on the Bears bandwagon all season. There are some people that come up to me and they say, you should get on the Bonduel bandwagon. Like we've been there. We were there in the football season,
Yeah,
right? Because a lot of it's the same athletes. And this is the same sectional as Auburndale and Stratford and Marathon. It's just the other side of the bracket, right? It's going to be Bonduel and Iola is going to get a third shot at them in the playoffs, probably. But man, it would take a lot for someone to beat Bonduel at Bonduel or on a neutral court.
yeah,
It really
yeah.
would.
It'd be tough to figure. Yeah, it'd be tough to figure. I called the Bonduel sectional final baseball team. They went to state last year. Same group of guys. They were also in a sectional final at basketball last year. They made a deep run football this year. This group has it. It looks like. Stratford comes in at number 10 in, again, in Division 4, Iola Scandinavia 18. And so those are, again, teams you see on the network fairly often. Your Marathon Red Raiders 30th right now in Division 4, and that seems pretty right.
Yeah. I know we're going to talk about the schedule and the game tonight, which is a really big one. Marathon is one of these teams that I think they're punching above their weight a little bit
Hmm.
right now, right? And again, a lot of credit to Coach Jacobson and what he's doing with that team, which doesn't have superstars, right? And not every team needs superstars to do well, but it really does help. And I think that Marathon beat Stratford earlier in the season. So tonight is going to be a little bit of a revenge game for the Tigers. But just the way that the standings shake out, the loser tonight is probably out of the conference championship race.
Yeah, come playoff time, you really need to have that B plus, A minus player. And, Marathon, a good group of Bs and B minuses, I think.
Yeah, we saw that Friday night because we were in Marathon for the
Yeah,
Mosinee game, and
yeah,
Mosinee had their way with Marathon that
yeah.
night. And it really made me think back to last year, the team that Marathon had last year.
Mm.
They probably win Friday night, right? Or it would be a
Yeah,
really good game,
yeah,
right? And that's the difference that one year makes of a one graduating class of last year's team to this year's team. That Marathon, I don't remember what the final was. It was 30 points, probably
yeah,
something in there.
yeah.
And that Marathon team last year probably wins that game, or it's an extremely close game. So yeah, Coach Jacobson's doing a lot with what he has.
Yeah,
Nothing against the kid. It's just young youth this year.
the Marathon team last year, their 1-2 was an A and A minus. So that's as critical as those grades can be sometimes. In Division 5, Cochrane, Fountain City, Royal, Highland, Southwestern, Spring Valley. We don't see these teams a lot here on our network, but we know that they are really good. The seed score is there. So again, back to Bondwell, just to draw this line here, because the Division 4, Division 5 to me is not that big of a difference year in and year out. 741 for Bondwell, again, 741, 633 for Cochrane Fountain City. So this year there is a big drop off. Loyal, who spent some time at number 1 during this season, I don't know that anybody's falling faster, boys or girls, in any division than the Loyal Greyhounds right now. They sit at 15. They lost again on Saturday at Abbotsford, and that team just continues to plummet. Hopefully, for if you're a Greyhounds fan, Coach DeSmith's able to throw the parachute out and at least slow whatever may be going on there. Columbus Catholic 18, Rib Lake is 20, and Owen Withy comes in at 27. Again, other teams we see on the network. And again, I'm reading right from the website, right from the VIP page. $5 a month, you can do the same thing.
I am looking at it on the other screen.
It's easy to do.
This is fresh off the presses, right?
Yeah, the boys just came out like 2 hours ago, right?
Yeah. I checked this morning and it wasn't there yet. So yeah, brand new.
Okay.
Literally up to the minute. Up to the minute.
Up to the minute. That's kind of how we do things around here. All right, got about 15 minutes left here. So taking a look at the schedule here tonight. This is Tuesday, the 28th. Girls basketball continues. The Assumption Lions take on the Rhinelander Hodags. That's 1 versus 25. Steve Maves on the call there. Number 15, Owen Withy girls basketball team playing at home to Columbus Catholic. Ben Brecht is on the call there. Dan, you mentioned Marathon and Stratford. We talked about their rankings earlier. That is a game that if anybody wants a shot to catch Auburndale, you've got to win that one tonight. And then we've got a girls-boys doubleheader hockey. Eau Claire area Stars take on the Hayward Hurricanes. Then the boys take the ice, Memorial and River Falls. And then we've got Matt Peck and Elijah Vangsalata on the call in Milwaukee area. Brookfield East, number 11 in girls basketball, taking on number 2, Wauwatosa East. So not only do we give you the ranked teams, we show them right here for all to see.
Yeah, and we have Pacelli on the network. We have Iola Pacelli boys. That's a great game in Stevens Point tonight.
You know, I better go back here because I must have missed Pacelli. I'm sorry, the Pacelli Cardinals in the boys' side, number 7. My apologies, Cardinals. Coach Shirk probably wants to wring my neck, but now we got it right. Yeah, we've got a lot going on. Marshfield DC Everest boys basketball tonight. I don't know how you Wausau West, Wausau East. I'm sorry, that's the girls. Never mind. Wausau West on the network tonight. So yeah, if you want to see some of the top teams in the state, Zaleski Sports right here on a Tuesday night's a place to be.
Yeah, and we've talked a little bit about the Wisconsin Valley boys, especially. The top four teams, pretty interchangeable. Marshfield's having a great season, obviously. And Spash is playing a little bit better now that they have Aui back,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And but it's not that far of a fall for Wausau West, Wausau East, DC Everest. Like there's five really good teams in that conference any given night.
Any given night. Yeah. Speaking of any given, do we have a Merriwood Minute today?
Yeah, of course I do.
Wow, that is fantastic. All right, folks. Well, it is the much awaited, usually anticipated Merriwood Minute presented by Midstate Technical College and Dan Ross.
Yeah, live to you from the frozen north. It's the Norwood Minute. All right, let's jump right into something that's near and dear to me.
Okay.
Brackets. Already talked about it. 2.5 weeks away from the brackets being released. That is February 16th, right? That's 2 weeks from Saturday or Sunday, whatever day they release them. So
Yep.
it's coming. Head over to VIP, $5 a month. If you are a coach, especially, you can figure out a group of 2 or 3 teams that you should probably start scouting for regionals. We're getting that close.
Yeah, and for the fans, right? You can figure out those 2 or 3 teams that you may need some help from, and go drive over there and start cheering for those teams.
It's true.
Yeah,
it's very true. And maybe eat some popcorn on the way for the ones that are
there we go. There we go.
Yeah. Girls in the north, Phillips has a 2-game lead. They're 7-3. They're cruising to another conference title. Rib Lake and Prentice, they're about at 500. Phillips has already played the really good teams in the Merriwood South, so they are on cruise control here the rest of the way. Don't remember where they're at in the rankings. Not quite as powerful of a team as they have been in the last couple of years, but still a good team that can make some noise in the playoffs. The bottom half is losing steam. A lot of credit to Shawamigan and Park Falls. They fell to Newman Catholic, but this is the first time in my not great memory of Shawamigan still playing at the end of January. So it's great
that's a win right there. That's a win.
Yep. In the South, Assumption ran over Marathon last night is probably the best way to explain it. They're 10-0. They haven't lost a conference game in nearly 3 years or 2 years or whatever it's been, a long time. They're 2 games clear of Auburndale and Stratford. So the Royals also cruise control to another conference title, I would say. Marathon is just a step behind those 2 teams. Still looking for that first signature win against an Assumption, Stratford, Auburndale. They are the next tier underneath those 3 teams, I would say. Power rankings, real quick. I will give you the top 5. How about that?
Let's do it.
Number 5, Marathon, 12-3. Number 4, Phillips, 11-4. Really good records for these teams. Stratford is number 3 at 11-4. Auburndale, I put them at number 2, even though I believe they split with Stratford this year. But Auburndale, recency bias, and the win against Pacelli, I have them at number 2 at 15-2. Great season. And number 1, Assumption, 13-1. Someone's got to beat them to dethrone them. That's what I would say.
True that.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, just said true. Yeah, they're one until they're not.
Yeah. On the boys' side, in the north, Rip Lake, really strong season. They're up 2 games over Phillips, and then Prentice is about 500. Shout out to the Assumption boys knocking off Prentice on the road. Friday night. Yeah, really good win.
Yeah, they were very excited about it. I saw that.
They were. I saw some celebratory pictures late that night. Yeah, it was. Yeah. The South is a lot more interesting. We've already touched on it a little bit. Tonight, Stratford travels to Marathon. Auburndale has 1 conference loss. Marathon and Stratford have 2.
Right.
So the loser tonight falls to 3 and 2 games behind. There's just not enough games.
They're out. You lose tonight, you're out.
Yep. So it's gonna be a good one. Come down to Marathon or watch it with us. I'll be on the call. Um, Rewind back to mid-December, Marathon won at Stratford 62-61 at the Tiger Cage. So a little bit of revenge on the mind of Stratford coming in tonight, Coach Schmidt. Um, let's see what else they have here. Top five.
Okay.
Five, Phillips, 7-5.
Okay. That's
Four,
good for the Loggers. It's a good year.
it is a good year. And the other thing I would say, we mentioned it a little bit earlier on in the season. Norwood North was really holding their own against the South. Not really the case lately. The South teams are excelling late in the season, which is probably what usually happens. So Phillips at 7-5, still respectable. Four is Marathon at 10-5. Three is Rib Lake, 9-5. Rib Lake has the head-to-head win at Marathon this year, just before Christmas. Number two, Stratford, 12-2. And number one, Auburndale, 13-1. Quite a season over in Auburndale this year.
Yeah, and Coach Weinfurter and we talked about the other coaches, Jacobson and Schmidt and on from there. You said the South Marywood South teams are excelling, right? They're on the accelerator right now, deep into the season, and there is, to me, a coaching discrepancy. I mean, the coaches in the South just have been able over the years to outcoach those of the North, and you see that right now because they always tend to have their team still going up this time of year, and some of the Marywood North teams start to flatline a little bit towards the end of the regular season.
Yeah. And I mean, just in general, in high school sports, if you have stability at the top of the program, whether that's athletic directors and coaches, if you have coaches that have been there for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, those are your best programs,
Yeah.
right? Because it's built up from the elementary schools all the way up. Even if it's accidental, these coaches aren't changing their game plan vastly year to year, right? Now, Coach Jacobson, some years he has a team that can play a lot more zone. Some years it's man defense, but the Marathon brand is there. And it's the same way with Coach Schmidt and Coach Weinfurter. They've been there for a long time now.
Yeah, every now and then you get a mom or dad that is willing to coach the team, and they know what they're doing. They're a really good coach, but by and large, you look through the annuals of high school sports here in the United States of America, those that have programs, maybe along the way, you coached your son or daughter, but that wasn't why you were doing it. You did it for 20 years, and you are not that mom or dad. And in the school that gets that luxury, and that's what I'll call it, it is a luxury because you don't plan for that to happen. It happens to you. Somebody shows up at your door and says, I want to coach this thing for the next 30 years. And when that happens, those schools, those programs just have a leg up on everybody else.
Yeah, and kudos to the coaches because honestly, these coaches are making $2,000 a year, right?
Yeah.
Maybe $3,000 a year, depending on the school. And during the basketball season, they're putting in 30, 40 hours a week, sometimes more,
Yeah,
right?
it all equates to pennies an hour, quite literally pennies an hour. And it's not about the money.
Yeah. So remember that when you're being critical of the coaching staff, right? Is
Please,
that it really is a volunteer position for the most
please.
part.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, Dan, we got enough time to recap our popcorn bracket, and then we'll give you a
Love it.
last word as we always do on today's show. The round that is going on now, teams will advance on Saturday. But here's what we have. Number 2 seed Auburndale going up against number 7 seed Colby. Number 3 seed DC Everest, who barely got by the 14 seed Brookfield Central. They are still on upset alert as they take on the 6 seed Pacelli. On the left side of the bracket, Eau Claire Memorial, the 5, Kaukauna the 4. That's anybody's contest this week over there. And the favorite in this bracket of mine, the Greenwood Indians, taking on the Marshfield Girls, who were a surprise entry into the field of 16. But that's where we are now, and that'll get updated on social media on Saturday. Now is the time, though, folks, to let us know on our social media pages why you think any of those popcorns are better than the other one. Because we will start to take your advice and your input on this thing going forward. So with that, Dan, last word on today's show.
Yeah, just so you know, it's actually pretty mild here this week. We don't have the sun and the beach that you have, but they're talking maybe 50 degrees on Thursday
No
here.
way. Come on. No way.
Yeah, pretty incredible stuff. Don't know if the golf courses will be open, but we can hope. They're
I
not gonna be.
saw a social media post as our friendly beach cruiser is coming overhead here. We'll let that pass by in just a couple moments here.
I can't hear them.
Okay, well, I'm glad you can't hear it. Yeah, it's the beach, the helicopter beach patrol. Just I'll give you. Maybe I should or shouldn't say this. Looking for floaters. That's what the helicopter does. So yeah, I saw on social media yesterday, and I wish I would have paid attention to it. I don't think it was in central Wisconsin, maybe southern, but there is a golf course that had planned on opening on Wednesday. Uh, Likely in the southern third of Wisconsin. So if you're willing to make a drive and you're willing to do a little research, you might be able to get some swings in on Thursday or Friday.
I'm hoping that Rib Mountain Golf Course is open. They're open on Christmas usually if there's no snow, and they don't really care too much about wrecking that course. So yeah,
Your
maybe.
is your lawn white or green right now?
It's white, but it's melting quick. I also have, so today's garbage day,
Okay.
and the garbage truck missed something, and I just see cardboard boxes just floating down the road right now in the wind. I don't think they're ours. I think they're somebody else's.
Well, at least that's what you'll say if somebody knocks on your door. Those are somebody else's.
It's true. But
All right.
yeah, go out, support local basketball teams. If you're homebound tonight, we have looks like 12, 14 games on the network. We only had two games last night. I felt like the whole world was watching me last night. We have 14 tonight. I have a really good one in Marathon.
There you go. 38 for the rest of the week. So just check out ZaleskiSports.com for all of your favorite viewing options. For Dan Ross, I'm Jason Zaleski. Go Sports.
Sports!